Hey guys, this is my presentation on the philosophy of introspection for Intro to Philosophy. Philosophy, the study of the basic ideas about knowledge, truth, right and wrong, religion, and the nature and meaning of life. This is a definition of philosophy according to Merriam-Webster Dictionary. What could be better philosophical knowledge than the knowledge about ourselves? So many great philosophers throughout time have experienced the importance of knowing oneself. Socrates questioned if an unexamined life is even worth living. Epicurus strived to bring forth the idea of value materialism, with the three main points being friends, freedom, and philosophy. Descartes was a fierce rationalist whose idea of the cogito brought forth tremendous insight. Sartre was a key figure in the philosophy of existentialism with a strong emphasis on authenticity. Some of the greatest philosophers of all time studied what it means to be an individual, the importance in the choices we make, and how we can be our best selves. The unexamined life is not worth living. A quote from the famous philosopher Socrates. What did Socrates mean by this? Socrates merely wanted people to cultivate purpose in their lives. If someone doesn't examine their life from time to time, then how could they know what brings them purpose and fulfillment? Some people find purpose in starting a family. Some people find purpose in their work. Some people just want to be happy and aren't interested in self-examination. Starting a family has always been a goal for a lot of people, and of course it should be, since stable procreation is necessary for our existence. This is a simple primal instinct for most people, and it has been reinforced since the 1920s by the idea of the nuclear family. This idea seems to be in jeopardy, however, since birth rates have been steadily declining in the younger generations. According to U.S. News reports, between 1976 and 2018, the mean number of children ever born per woman declined from 3 children to 2. Student debt, climate uncertainties, and changing family values seem to be some of the driving factors for this. Meaningful work seems to be a very logical place for someone to find purpose in their life. This work is of course subjective, and that's where the self-reflection comes in. Some people find meaning in politics, perhaps they can change policies and provide leadership. Some people find meaning in healthcare, helping people recover from injuries and provide support. Some people find meaning in journalism, providing people with information. Whatever that subjective purpose is that people find meaning in, it will always come after self-examination, and that's why a meaningful life requires it. We can't actually judge if someone's life is worth living, though. Some people could go through life without taking a second to reflect on why they do the things they do and be perfectly fine. Since we are all just people, and none of us are gods who have the power to choose whose lives are worth anything at the end, then how can we say with certainty that an unexamined life isn't worth living? If nobody ever asked these questions, then maybe that's what a society of machines would look like. Whether it is through family, meaningful work, or through something else, Socrates believed that a life of purpose is a life worth living, and without self-reflection and examination, we cannot know what our purpose is. Friendship, freedom, and an examined life, the 3 things a person needs in order to live a happy life according to the philosopher Epicurus. A carefully curated close group of friends can help keep someone happy, both in the short term and the long term. Having a couple buddies to go have a drink with after a long week of work can be just what a person needs to unwind. Being able to rely on a close friend throughout a long period of time to remind you of where you came from and what you've been through, to make you feel good about who you are and the choices you made, can form a lifetime bond and provide long-term happiness. Freedom is something that we all crave, but some of us may take it for granted. The freedom to choose to buy whatever kind of car I want can provide me with short-term happiness. Being able to choose what you want to do for a job or career is something that can give us great purpose and fulfillment, which provides us with both short-term and long-term happiness. The examined life is the last ingredient we need in order to be happy, according to Epicurus. Without self-examination, we cannot know who we truly are or what brings us fulfillment and joy in life. Going to therapy is a great way to figure out what makes you feel certain ways, and is one of the best ways to examine your life with the help of a professional. An examined life is something that will help with short-term happiness because we can better live in the moment and soak in the goodness of life. It will also provide long-term happiness because if we can better understand ourselves, we can know what brings us joy and fulfillment. Friends, freedom, and the examined life, however, can't be a foolproof formula for finding happiness. Having 1,500 friends on Facebook wouldn't necessarily mean that we are close with any of them, which wouldn't really help us with long-term happiness. Sometimes too much freedom can be a detriment. For example, some people may have too much freedom of choice on a dating app. This person can mindlessly swipe on thousands of profiles and never actually go on a date because they think they have so many options, when in reality, they would be better off carefully selecting a few good profiles to match with and then go on a date with them. Self-examination can end up taking up too much of a person's time where they don't actually fully live their life anymore. They become fixated on self-examination. However, if a person is wise with their self-examination, they can see that having a lot of friends on social media isn't really helping them. They could also see that they don't need to spend countless hours on dating apps to try to find the perfect match and never actually be satisfied with it. They need to find a healthy balance of self-examination and having experiences that are worth examining. Friends, freedom, and self-examination all seem to be great ingredients to make a fulfilling and happy life. The philosophy of value materialism can provide us with both short-term and long-term happiness if we can put our time and energy into it. I think, therefore I am, or cogito ergo sum in Latin. This was philosopher René Descartes' most famous idea. Descartes believed that as a philosopher, everything should be doubted. He called this his method of doubts, which essentially broke down bigger ideas into smaller ones. He spent the majority of his life experiencing new things and reflecting upon them to achieve better insight, and was fiercely determined to help people achieve a better way of thinking. The cogito works. Descartes believed that our existence itself needed no evidence, and merely contemplating it proved its existence. Our minds can be tricked into believing things that haven't actually occurred. A mirage in the desert is an example of this. We could dream about doing something and our mind could be tricked into believing it actually happened, but it was only in the dream. A person with schizophrenia might see things that others don't, but in their mind it is real. Our minds may be tricked into believing many things, but our existence is still real. In the video Philosophy, René Descartes' narrator Alain de Botton quotes Descartes saying, he believed that much of what was wrong with the world was caused by misusing our minds by confusion, bad definition, and unconscious illogicality. Democracy could certainly be an example included in this. Democracy is basically a popularity contest, and the people that get elected into positions of power aren't necessarily the best decision makers, but are the most popular politicians. Descartes believed that through introspection we could improve our way of thinking. If we adopted this mentality, perhaps we could see that a democratic government isn't the best suited for us. The counter-argument for Descartes' theory would be that we cannot perceive a mind, therefore we cannot prove its existence. Berkeley believed that if something couldn't be perceived by the senses, that could not be proven to be real. We can cut into a person's head and see a brain, but we cannot see a mind, which is what Descartes believed to not need any proof of. We can see somebody dancing to the tune of a song and assume that they are hearing what we are hearing, but we cannot be for sure. Descartes' method of doubts questions everything's existence, including things that could be perceived, since our minds can be tricked by the senses, which would refute Berkeley's argument for empirical evidence. The cogito is a strong argument and remains one of philosophy's most popular ideas for a reason. Descartes wanted people to have better insight and to be able to think critically so that we could strive for improvement. We can do this with determined introspection. From a Sartrean point of view, human existence means nothing. Our lives have no meaning until we understand that we are the ones responsible for giving it meaning. The choices that we make and don't make are what shapes our lives and defines who we are. Jean-Paul Sartre believed that existence precedes essence. This means that we have no inherent meaning when we are born, and that we must make meaning on our own. The choices that we make up who we are. The choices that we don't make are also part of what makes us. If a person goes through life and has many different experiences that they can reflect on, then they can be authentic and choose a career that they feel gives us meaning. If this person decides that the best thing they can do is to be a drug dealer, then so be it. If this person was able to reflect on their life, and be immune to outside pressure and they chose to be a drug dealer, then this is an authentic choice that gives their life meaning. Sartre also believed things and beings. Things in the world would be everything in the world outside of ourselves. The being would be I. For there to be an I in the world, then there would have to be freedom of choice for I. Otherwise, the being would just be another thing in the world. An example of this would be the server and served relationship. If someone were to go to a restaurant and order food that they wanted to eat, then they would be the I, and the food would be the thing. The server could also be a thing because of objectification. A problem with Sartre's things and beings argument would be objectification and pressure of anxiety. Sometimes pressure from the outside world can get to us and influence our choices. If this happens, then we can become another thing in the world and not be the I because we have lost our freedom. An example of this would be a student who chooses to go to college because everyone told them that they needed to go and that it is expected of them. Even if they didn't want to go, the student submitted to peer pressure and the anxiety of the unknown if they didn't go to college, and they made an inauthentic choice to go to college. The remedy for this problem is to be authentic. Author Kevin Aho at the Stanford Encyclopedia of Philosophy states that an authentic life is one that is willing to break with tradition and social convention and courageously affirm the freedom and contingency of our condition. Authenticity requires introspection and freedom of choice. For a person to be authentic, then they must understand what they want to do and not be so heavily influenced by outside forces so much so that it affects their choices. If the student really knew for themselves that they didn't want to go to college, then that is what their choices should be to give it meaning to their life. Sartre believed that human existence meant nothing until we gave it meaning. If we can use introspection to understand that the choices we make are what makes us who we are and what gives us meaning, then we can live our best authentic lives. From the early days of philosophy, in the 300 BC years with Socrates, to the late 1900s with Sartre, some of the greatest philosophers have been studying the importance of introspection and the meaning of life. Introspection can help find purpose and fulfillment, help us make better choices, and help us to provide short and long-term happiness.